People like to think it's like a cinematic moment where I find this golden document, like the Stellar Wind Report, and that's the closest thing to a smoking gun, right, that exists. But look, if you found that, you can read that later, look at that, and like imagine yourself being like, oh, I'm going to go outside on the courthouse steps and wave this thing and burn my life to the ground, burn my family to the ground, I'm never going to be work again, I'm going to jail for the rest of my life. The question is, what would it take for you to light a match and burn your life to the ground? For a long time, too long, the answer was nothing, and I'm ashamed of that. It took me so long to get over that hump because I was waiting for somebody else to do it. When I saw people like Ron Wyden on this, when I saw people like the court case that I showed before, where people were actively challenging these programs, right? Journalists had the scent of it. And, you know, there are a lot of people who are going to be in, you know, the YouTube comments or whatever and go, oh, I knew this was happening. No, you didn't. Bill Binney is part of, shall we say, the group of early NSA whistleblowers who came with Thomas Drake, Bill Binney, Kirk Wiebe, I believe, and Ed Loomis. And these guys all got their doors kicked in. You know, they got harassed by the FBI. Tom Drake, who was a senior executive at the NSA, this is a guy who had a lot to lose, was charged under the same law I was, the Espionage Act. And these guys were doing it earlier, during the Bush administration. Some of them were talking to the journalists that, you know, maybe it's alleged. I don't want to put them on the spot. Maybe they deny it, maybe they don't. Leave that to them. But somebody somewhere was informing this reporting, right, that got into the New York Times about the Bush-era warrantless wiretapping program. And eventually journalists put this out there. People knew these capabilities existed. But yeah, then there's the person in the YouTube comments who's like, oh, we knew all about this, it's nothing new. And the thing is, you can know about some programs and not know about others. You can have a suspicion, you can know with certainty that this stuff is capable, or is possible, the capability exists. You can know that the government has done this stuff in the past. You can know they are likely to do it again. You can have all these indications. You can have, like the Jewel versus NSA case that's run by the EFF, which is about it's about AT&T setting up secret rooms in their telecommunications facilities where they basically drag all the fibers for their domestic internet communications and like phone communications into a room that's purpose-built for the NSA, and then they bring it out. But AT&T denies it's the NSA. The NSA denies that these things happen or that are done at all, right? And so this is the context. You say you know, and, you know, let's put it the other way. Maybe you do know, right? Maybe you are an academic researcher. Maybe you're a technological specialist. Maybe you're just somebody who reads all the reporting and you actually know. You can't prove it, but you know this is going on. But that's the thing in a democracy. The distance between speculation and fact, the distance between what you know and what you can prove to everybody else in the country is everything in our model of government, because what you know doesn't matter. What matters is what we all know. And the only way we can all know it is if somebody can prove it, if you can prove it. And if you don't have the evidence, you can't prove it. And of course, when we talk about the earlier stuff, right, like this, a more corporatized media, they've got 1,000 incentives not to get involved in this stuff. They need access to the White House. They need these officials to sit down with them and give interviews, right? That's constant content that they need. That's access that they need. They need to be taken seriously. They need to be, admitted to briefers. It is a codependent relationship. And yet, so, the only way to make sure people understand this broadly is if we all work together, right? If we collectively can establish a corpus of evidence, right? A body of facts that is so large and so persuasive, it overcomes the natural and understandable resistance of these more corporatized media groups. It overcomes the political and partisan sort of loyalties that all of these political factions in the country do, where they go, you know, it's my president. Even if I don't like this stuff, even if I don't agree with this stuff, I don't want to say it exists. I want to deny it until it's proved, you know, in HD on video, you know, signing the order to do this, that, or the other. Because otherwise there's a chance my guy might not get reelected. And that's the only way this kind of stuff can happen. And the sad fact is, the opportunities that we have to prove this, like the moments in history where we do prove something, anything, beyond a reasonable doubt, are so few and so rare that they almost always only come from whistleblowers. And I think that's one of the problems that we have, particularly in the climate movement. Well, Obama also, during his campaign, said he campaigned actively against the warrantless wiretapping, the Bush administration. Because remember, Bush is in the scandal, the height of this, in 2007. You know, the election's coming up right after. And he's going, Obama's saying, you know, that's not who we are. That's not what we do. And yet, within 100 days of him becoming a president, now he's sitting in that chair. Rather than extinguishing these programs, he embraces them and expands. I think it's actually, again, what we talked about earlier. First thing, every time a new president comes into the White House, they get their clearances, right? They get read into all this stuff. During the campaign, they get clearances and they get read into all stuff. But when they finally become president, right, now they're the only people who can sign what these are called covert action findings and things like that. Which are basically, you know, the intelligence community wants to assassinate somebody. They want to run this illegal program here, there, or everywhere. And they can't do it because they're executive agencies without that top-level executive sign-off. And so they got to open the vest, right? They got to get these guys on side. Basically every president since Kennedy, they have been successful in what they call fearing up. Where as soon as they come in, they read you the litany of horribles. And they go, these are all the threats that we're facing. And let's be real, it is a dangerous world. It's not just all made-up BS. Some of it is, right, where it's inflated. It's not that it's completely false, but they make it sound more serious than it actually is. But there are real bad people out there who are trying to do real bad things. And you have just gone through a hellish election, because our electoral politics are so diseased. Now, after you've crawled through fire, you're already thinking 4 years ahead. You know, how do I stay in this seat? And these guys are basically saying, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, this is going to fall on your lap. And the implication, which I don't think they actually say, but every president knows, is these guys can undermine you to death. If you've got the IC against you, right, they can stonewall you, they can put out stories that are going to be problematic for you every day of your presidency. And it's not that it's necessarily going to cast you out of the White House, but it's a problem that as a president you very much don't want. So in the most charitable interpretation of this, you've got a new guy coming in. In Obama's case, this is a pretty young guy. Doesn't focus in this kind of national security, foreign policy stuff throughout his earlier career. He's more interested in domestic policy and always has been. That's actually one of the positive things to say about Barack Obama. He's just trying to make things better at home. And now suddenly they go, look, you need to worry about this country. You need to worry about this group that you've never heard of. You need to worry about, you know, this technology. You need to do all this stuff. And the only reason we can tell you this stuff, and the only thing dividing America and the abyss, are these terrible, 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 terrible programs, right? That are in fact wonderful things because they keep back the darkness. And so here's the real problem. Every president hears that, and every president, you know, first off, they've got so many other things to do, is they just kind of nod their head and they'll go, I'll deal with this later in my administration. And this is one of the ironies. When I came forward in 2013, right, this is now Barack Obama's second term president, one of the responses that they had to the mass surveillance scandal was, yes, we think they went a little too far. This is after the initial thing where they went, nobody's listening to your phone calls, you know. Nobody can have perfect privacy and also have perfect security, so we got to sort of divide a line here between the Constitution and, you know, what the government wants to do. But they said we were gonna get to it. We knew these programs were problematic, but if they just gave us more time, we would have fixed them.